Ohio's upset with the deal. Republican Congressman Steve King of Iowa, who joins us now. Congressman, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
Well, you know, I heard part of your statements from the floor. You described why you did not vote for this continuing resolution. It's mostly your opposition to Obamacare. Tell us about that.
Well, I've drawn a line. I fought Obamacare for the last year and a half a year to kill the bill, and more than a year now trying to repeal it. And I believe that we had the leverage to cut off. We passed it, by the way. We passed the repeal in the House, sent it to the Senate. And then we needed to cut off all the funding to Obamacare that would be used to implement or enforce it. There are only two major points of leverage in this whole 112th Congress over this 2-year period of time. One of them is the continuing resolution that just passed to fund the government for the balance of this fiscal year to September 30th. The other one is the debt ceiling. If we don't use them to the maximum effect, we will see tens of billions of dollars used to implement Obamacare. And after the elections in 2012, even presuming that we elect a president and a majority in the United States Senate that all agree with the House, there will be so much implementation in place, it'll be very hard to pull Obamacare out by the roots. I think it's just imperative that we use the leverage we have, and I wanted to have that showdown because it's that important. It's $2.6 trillion in outlays for Obamacare in the first full 10 years of its implementation. And I believe that it's an unconstitutional takings of American liberty.
Well, you know, the president disagrees with you on the numbers. And what's interesting about his 2012 budget is in many ways, he says he's going to cut $300 billion out of the cost of health care spending by the federal government. But in many ways, he's sort of doubling down on the Obamacare strategy. He wants to give more power to this independent advisory panel, which will control spending in those public programs. What do you make of this?
Well, part of the strategy on this White House and by the Democrats in the House and the Senate over the last couple of months has been, don't talk about Obamacare. They've got the money sitting there to implement it. $23.6 billion automatically appropriated, written into Obamacare. And the irony would be that if this continuing resolution had not passed today and we'd faced a government shutdown, there would have been federal offices shut down all across the country, not all of them, but in some of them they would have been busily implementing Obamacare. So I think the president wants to tamp this discussion down. I think he had to confront it because the Ryan budget repeals Obamacare. The CR language that we did today cuts off all the funding to Obamacare, including the $105.5 billion in automatic spending. So it forced him into remarks on it. But in the end, they're going to try to tamp it down. They don't want this to be the issue in 2012.
Well, you know, Congressman, I got to tell you, your critics would say, hey, you know, we've got to get the spending bill passed. It's just for the 6 months of the year. Additional cuts were found. True, Obamacare was not torn out by the roots as you want. But at the end of the day, we have to find some common ground here. How would you respond to them?
I would say the common ground is going to be a lot more common to the will of the American people if we'd have drawn a bright line and said, Mr. President, if you care so much about Obamacare that you are willing to proactively shut down all the other functions of government, I think the American people side with us on that issue, and I think we win. So I think we needed to fight a stronger battle on a clear principle. And I've said that money really isn't a principle. You can say, I'll stand and fight on the principle of a dollar. But when it becomes a dollar and a penny, does the principle change, or 99 cents? So it's hard to have a principle be a money figure. 100 billion, 61 billion, 38.5 billion. But when the principle of an unconstitutional Obamacare is clear to the American people, and I wanted to stand on a principle with the maximum leverage, and I want to be able to send that message that we need to grab this thing and get it done and not wait for an election.
Congressman, you know, you look at the differences between Obamacare and the Path to Prosperity written by Congressman Paul Ryan, which he is famous for, this very dramatic change in the entitlement programs. Surely the real change that occurs here has to be something in the middle. Ryan's plan is regarded by many people as not just dramatic, but maybe too dramatic.
A little more dramatic than Ryan's plan is fine with me. And I know you didn't offer that as an option. I want to say in Paul Ryan's defense, and he doesn't need to be defended at all in this, he deserves a lot of credit for advancing the issue of entitlements, particularly as Social Security and Medicare, the two-third rails wrapped up into one bill that's being debated here in this Congress now. He deserves a lot of credit for that. We've got to have that debate moving forward. And it was one of those things of a little bit of playing chicken. Who was going to go first? Was the president going to actually lead and go first and lead on entitlements? No. He wanted to wait it out. And then, so the president then issues Obama budget, not 1.0, because that's done, but Obama budget 2.0 rolled out yesterday, just in time for us to debate the Ryan budget today and tomorrow. I think that it is a failure to lead on the part of the president. I think Paul Ryan has nailed that just right. I just want to balance the budget sooner than Paul Ryan's ready to. I don't want to tell my children that they'll be ready for retirement before we get a budget balanced. And so that's where I stand, and I'd like to do something dynamic, too. I don't think we've been visionary thinkers here with regard to tax policy. We've been tweaking it here and there. I think we should abolish the IRS tax code, take all the tax off of productivity in America, put it on consumption with a national sales tax, and let this economy grow again. If we could do that, it would change the political dynamic in America, it would inject it into our economy, and this economy would grow, and that'll help solve the problem a lot.
Well, Congressman, we can't agree on $38 billion in cuts, so, I mean, you know, getting rid of the IRS, that could be hard. Listen, thanks for your help today. We appreciate it. Thank you, Congressman King.